Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for the mayor of Abbotsford, BC. To bring the RCMP CSIS in to Abbotsford, to open the city's books on what took place on our residents by elective officials that were using their position to enrichinate themselves, their friends, but also to threaten residents. It was insider trading, and it was a mob, and it was all done under the Abbotsford APD, the private police department. Without Henry Braun taking the mayorship and his son Darren Braun in front of him as proving officer to get the information out of what everybody was doing, it would have been totally impossible for anybody to stand up and call it out. This led to threats on innocent people. It led to rigging the elections. It led to the Abbotsford Task Force abusing its position to go after the South Asian councillor Mogale. It led to electoral officer rigging elections and blocking other people. It led to the corruption and the misleading of the Chamber of Commerce, Greg Toes, and blocking candidates. It led to the Vicky Hopes and Ken, who was tied through Rick Rates of the Abbotsford newspaper, to block people in the democratic process. It also led to Dave Sadu, a city council, and blocking with his newspaper to the South Asians and threats. It was for an establishment and a mob to own Abbotsford, British Columbia. When Darren Brown opened that door, I took it to the Mission RCMP. And before I begin today's podcast of what brings me here, I want to elaborate again how important it is that we get behind Yuri Fulner of the BC Conservatives with Dallas Brody and get him the leadership. And why that is so important. Yuri will open these up for Abbotsford. He'll listen to what residents went through, and there's not going to be no pressure and for treatments for people that were involved with this. And under him, Dallas Brody, you will get the law in here, and we'll get charges, and we'll get these bank accounts and these things opened up. This is what I see in the BC Conservative leader, Yuri Fulner. And this is why Abbotsford worked so hard. So let me tell you what Abbotsford did when Henry Brown said, you go to Ed fast, it goes nowhere. He was controlling the MP. Abbotsford knew that thanks to the Mission RCMP. And when Abbotsford went to the sitting M.L.A. Mike DeYoung, and Mike threatened with Simon Gibson, and they were both liberals and Mike was Attorney General, the RCMP knew that these people were working together. Something that you're not supposed to be doing. And they were blocking and cleaning. Henry Brown was the mastermind and the train tycoon of the engine of it all. If he goes down, everybody goes down. This is why Mike Sir protected Henry Brown on a hit and run and wouldn't lay charges. This is why the Abbotsford police stalked me, threatened me, and bullied me. There was the help of the Abbotsford witnesses and the RCMP mission that you could see all this, and Abbotsford police could sit there and tell you, we're going after gangs, you need us, we're the task force, we know we're crimes. They were originating themselves, they were abusing the community, they were taking advantage of the community, picking up prostitutes, and the list just went on. Henry needed my mouth shut, and I believe my opinion is that Mike Sir phoned Henry and some of his officers that are under investigator officers said, you need to shut that guy's mouth. We're all going to go down. How high it goes, I believe it goes right into David Eby's office, and that is why Colin Watts is here. This is why I'm asking you to go out and take your vote in behind Yuri Fulner so this doesn't happen, not just to me, to our residents. Under Yuri Fulner and his leadership, when that's secured, I will bring every resident forward, podcast by podcast, and show you what took place to them and their lives and what was taking place on the threats. These are the witnesses that the Abbotsford police failed to do. Then I'll increase this and I will go after the Abbotsford police, their investigators, their upper investigators, and their whole board that had a sworn duty because they were involved in a mob, and we cannot allow this. That is why I stand on the world stage and say they do not die in the line of duty after what Olenoff did. I'm at Archway Community Services. Archway Community Services is a non-profit. Amrik Moran is an ambulance chaser and he's a city lawyer. He's Joe Gill's friend of 40 years. I want you to hear the speech before I begin on Amrik Moran. He's asking you to let him be your voice on City Council.
Of the Governance and Policy Committee of the Abbotsford Police Board, I am committed to good governance, fiscal responsibility, while protecting our families.
That is Amrik Moran. He was taken into Victoria by Korky Neufeld. And rather than Amrik Moran slap Korky Neufeld in the face, in the ledge, and stand up and say to David Eby, are you not the one that is arguing to pull alcohol off the shelves on Donald Trump, American alcohol, to teach the United States a lesson? So why are you blocking my friend of 40 years, Joe Gill, that wants to extend his cold storage on Short Road so blueberries don't got to be taken from Abbotsford into California and frozen and then bought back? Amrik Moran couldn't do that. And Korky Neufeld embarrassed everybody and the BC Conservatives. Yes, I believe that I'm going to get some phone calls about doing this to Korky Neufeld. But I warned everybody, no cheating, stand up for what's right, and it was wrong. And they're loading Amrik Moran and shadow picturing him. So let's talk, Amrik Moran. I'm running for the mayor of Abbotsford, and I want city councils and people that are putting their name in not to be loaded by establishments, but to be forthright to the general community. You claimed that you're on the Abbotsford Police Board by your own words, and you're a lawyer, and you know fiscal management, and you were in construction, and you know business, and in real estate. So let me give you a little bit of my background. First of all, Abbotsford must understand the police building was taken in the name of fraud. And Abbotsford residents didn't get a vote, and it was a lift to Unitech to get the job site, and it didn't go to tendering. When Darren Braun, Henry's son, who was a proving officer over Amrik Moran, he just sits here, he chases ambulances, stated and made the claim that you could retrofit the building. Retrofit means put another level on for $3 million. They weren't going to do that because they needed a bigger construction lift. Then Amrik Moran stood by. Well, the Abbotsford Police wanted another $25 million to do a facelift lift with flowers and railings and everything, rather than hold the contractor, Unitech, responsible and hold them to their agreement that they signed. Under that agreement, he would know that as a lawyer, and he couldn't do that. Then Amrik Moran knew that he's about fiscal management. When you see me and Abbotsford residents all over social media telling the Abbotsford Police that they're a joke in their building, and you got no fight for it, something's wrong. When you see Abbotsford police officers and you're sitting on management, Amrik Moran, picking up prostitutes down at the Alino Club and having their way, and no investigations, now you're going to probably say, that's not me, that's the upper management. You're in the fiscal management. When you see Abbotsford Police racing Dodge Chargers in the middle of the winter when they're not allowed to having them out, and you chase ambulance and no chains and snow tires, you know that that's wrong and you needed to call it out. When you see Keelan Olenoff and the threats that he did and he lied and you sat on this, but when you sit beside Sandy Blue, that was at the sports center and is a partner on that Abbotsford Police Board, and said I grabbed her up the dress to scandal me so Ross could win, and then allow her not through a democratic process to be elected but appointed with Darren Braun. And you knew this as a lawyer, but you also let your friend of 40 years, and you knew this as a lawyer, that the lift on Dave Sidhu's property and Andy Sidhu's on Tracy Road to buy it to Vitalis, where many South Asians have piece of properties for years. They wanted to do a juice bottling company and cold storage and were blocked. And that Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu were being rewarded handsomely for blocking at UFE. The risk of Andy Sidhu losing his job and maybe charges UFC made it clear. And you knew that lift, and you weren't forthright of pushing the Abbotsford Police as the board to release the documents of how much money that Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu made on that lift. And Archway and then Vitalis, which is Vanderpool's, were given $25 million as a conglomerate company that didn't need welfare, to bring commercial businesses on ag land and this was done. And you were about fiscal management, and you're going to be forthright to Abbotsford, and you're asking Abbotsford to trust you with a vote as a council. You're going to add that. I'm going to give you an invitation, Amrik, and I want you to hear that invitation. I am willing to sit down with you and live podcast you out and hear what your answers is. Here's a man that works at Archway Community Services and the lawyer. If I use the lawyer, I wear this Olympic coat, Amrik Moran, because of the Olympics that we built. We brought together, we saw countries come together, we saw races come together, cultures come together, and everybody worked for the greater goods of Canada. That is why I podcast out every day. And I don't use titles to try to fool people. I call a diamond and a spade, and Abbotsford residents have had enough of a beating, of a fraud, and misleading. This was totally wrong. For you, which is in an opposite riding, you're in Bruce Bamman's riding, and you should be going with Bruce to the ledge, but Bruce wouldn't do it. And you used Korky, and you should have called that out for BC, that these berries are going to California. Then Amrik Moran sits here on Archway Community Services with Rob Santiago. Remember Rob Santiago and Andy Sadu, how fast they were tied? When Andy threw Dave Sadu under the bus and said, my shit old son did that, Mr. Pelican, at UFV to block you. Dave Sadu's friends call him out and said, no, Andy was doing it. It was Archway Community Services, Rob Santiago, and them guys were all having a meeting with Craig Toes, and they needed you blocked. And Dave called you out, your own son. One telling on the other one. Amrik Moran sits here. In the name of a non-profit means you cannot make profit, Amrik. As a lawyer, you know that. You cannot maintain profit, period. That is why you're registered by the governing boards not to make profit. Archway made profit. Archway does nothing compared to what the Salvation Army of Mission does. And it has how many staff? How many people work there? And how much does it do for the greater good of Mission? Versus this with how many staff, how many executives and CEOs. But this company raised money for the name of our flood victims, our flood victims, our flood victims, our flood victims, and went and took that money and went and bought more real estate and asked who? Let me tell you, Amrik, you're a lawyer. Patricia Dreesen sits right here. Patricia Dreesen. Let me tell you who Patricia Dreesen is. She calls everybody out, Amrik. Everybody that's misleading, she'll call them out. So I'm expecting Dreesen's going to call you out. Everybody who's done. She owns Perfect Sense, Amrik. You know what Perfect Sense is? You're a lawyer. You can do title searches and searches. It's a company that is registered in her name, and it contracts here as a city council. And what did she do, Amrik? She helped waive Archway Community Futures taxes as a nonprofit in order to escape its tax bill, where it made profit and wasn't paying its fair share. Now, Amrik, let's move a little faster. You've got business experience in construction. I told you I worked for Wall Financial, built the Wall Centers in Yale Town Park and the Alliances and everything. I told you I knew Bruno Wall, Aquilini, Mike Dakota. Titles mean nothing. Title means nothing. Perform. Do you not think with your business, your real estate experience, Ron Funk of Diverse being tied to Henry Brown and the CEO of Diverse, hiding the development sign for years and years and years, to take the site so he bought it, the old newspaper site, and Vicky Hope's not scandalous, then change the zoning on the community without going back to the community or an official plan, and change it from 200 to 455. Amrik, do you not think, as your real estate thing, you should be standing and as a lawyer calling that out for residents? And then all the harm that was caused down there, the illegal soil that, Amrik, you got a little bit in construction, a little bit. So you would know that old building was built years ago in the 40s. It'd have asbestos, it'd have osmosis, it'd have silicone dust. That's in concrete, the silicone dust. And we were tugging it into Mission, or into Chilliwack, I should say. And I went to Chilliwack's mayor and had it red carded, Amrik, and you didn't call that out. You didn't use your construction experience because you didn't care about the safety of this community. And then Ron Funk of Diverse, for months and months carried on with illegal acts, cutting down all the trees that were Patricia Dree, Patty Ross is supposed to be an activist, all the trees illegal. No fines, no bylaw, no fines. And you were using your construction experience. Then let's go a little faster. Multi-billionaire was blocked in Augustine and Cooper's Farm, Amrik. Cooper's Farm was given a pass with city councils. Amrik, here how you run for council. Put their signs on the developer's property. Even Peter Wall made it clear when he used to help councils and mayor in Vancouver, nobody can be on my property in Yaletown Park, period, because now I owe them and it'll cause the community to know and the mayor can get in trouble and it's special reference treatment. And ran his signs all there, Amrik Moran. Ran his signs. But you got a law degree. You should be asking Mark Warkentine that's got his mouth shut. Abbotsford is looking for honest councils. They're looking for people that are forthright, that people don't shadow people that'll call stuff out. And I'm as willing, I told you to put you on my podcast, I'm willing to take you and sit you down in front of Sukman Gill's EDA, his EDA board, the pastors of the church and everything, so you can hear what they went through and you can hear the threats. Or you could sit here in Archway and try to fool them in that. I'm after the mayorship. And I'm after the mayorship to bring the RCMP in on all of you. And even you, Amrik Moran, these titles that you and Abbotsford Police, Henry Brown and Ross Siemens and these people were using was misleading the general community. If you're not forthright, and I got it wrong, I gotta apologize. I must apologize. I said it was 20 years, your friendship with Joe Gill. But you admitted on the podcast it's 40 years. Under me, you hear me. Under my mayorship, I will push on the ag to open it. And I will push that David Eby was taking alcohol off the shelves, said we're going to buy BC, grow BC, and stop Joe Gill from doing cold storage. Under me, I will release all the documents and everything that Dave Sadu and Andy Sadu were getting on that piece of property and putting it on ALR land. Under me, it will. But you can run these podcasts and show Abbotsford residents why you need to be elected for an establishment, why you need to be elected. When you say you're about families, you care about families and growing up, you should come and talk to my son that had to run my job site when Henry tried to kill me. Maybe you should talk to all the witnesses when Henry fled in his Alexis car and Mike Sir wasn't covering him up. Maybe that you shouldn't hang, you should hang your title up as a lawyer, and you should start going in politics. Or maybe you should just quit altogether, Amrik Moran, and become a janitor. There's no more free passes in Abbotsford. Abbotsford's been threatening. The South Asians were threatening. Residents were threatening. It was run as a mob. People from the back weren't letting people run in council. They were being blocked, and they were doing this. Now I want to make something clear to Amrik. You better hear this one, and I thought I'd share it. Abbotsford residents did something that was impossible. They didn't go to the lawyers and spend years and years of suing and being blocked in courts and manipulations of friends and friends. They went to the world stage and they called it to run for political offices, and you're going to see how many are going to run as councils and mayor and political offices to show the general public. They were sick and tired of being played cat and mouse, and they went publicly. So your families could see, your neighbors can see, the whole world can see, other law enforcements can see, your laws, the lawyers that you hang with, the judges that you hang with, and everybody can see. I expect, Amrik Moran, that you would have no hesitation of picking up the phone and say, Mr. Pelican, let's sit down. Bring my South Asians that were threatened, bring all them people that witnessed that, bring the ones that sit there, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to call it. Are you going to listen to what Archway Rob Santiago is going to tell you? You're going to listen to what Community Futures Nicole Reed did? Are you going to listen to that, or Amrik? Are you going to listen to what Nicole Reed did for out of Chilliwack, came in here and took our economic drivers and collapsed it all down? It's a mob. It's a mob, Amrik. You cannot justify it's a mob, and it needs to be gutted out. And it was being run from Ed Fast, Mike DeYoung, and Henry Brown. What should have been done, Amrik Moran, from the bottom up, is Henry Brown should have faced his charges. If Henry Brown would have faced his charges like everybody else when they abused the law, threatened people, and blocked people and go to jail, this would never came to Archway Community Services. Mr. Pelican, Abbotsford residents and South Asians that work with Mr. Pelican, and you see me podcasting Dallas Brody out, you see me now with Yuri Folner, and you see all this. Why? Why do I take this such a measure, Amrik Moran? Because the Abbotsford police took the law in their own hands and threatened me, and now they see me with these politicians. They're sitting in their houses scared, knowing that their jobs are terminated. This was a mob, and they were operating from the Abbotsford city. But I don't think you're the man to be a voice as a city council for Abbotsford. I would like to see Eric Neufeld put his name back forward as run for city council. That's one I'd like to see Gurpreet Rai put his name back forward for run for city council. I'd like to see Suki Dami put his name forward to run for city council. I'd like to see Councillor Mogel come out of retirement now and run for city council because he's got so much to offer and restate the Dyke committees and all this stuff and get it back up. These are the people. I'd like to see Marion Muscadam, who was threatened by Henry to drop when the flood came and not create a ruckus, put her name forward. These are the people that you want to see run for city council. These are the people that you want to see. But I will not allow you to have a pass when you make statements like that all over social media. I'd expect that you sit down with me and I'll teach you the ropes of construction. I'll teach you the ropes of fiscal management. I'll teach you the ropes of real estate. And I'll teach you the ropes about caring about families in this community. I'm live, Archway Community Services. And under me, I will make sure the federal government comes in and charges you all for fraud, tax evasion, lying, taking advantage as a non-profit to make profit, increasing your CEO checks, but ripping off them farmers. And that there, under me, I will convince that will happen. And Rob Santiago, maybe you can defend him in court. I'm live, Abbotsford, British Columbia.